My name is Alex.
And I'm Tora.
I'm David.
And for those just tuning in, this is a monthly anime book club style podcast where we watch an anime series or season or what have you, and then talk about it in a book club style with a little bit of lead in and other stuff in advance. And so, since we last left off, the spring anime season wrapped up and the summer anime season started. Not that much in the summer anime season, though I am enjoying Undead Murder Farce on Crunchyroll. It's
A plus name.
It is. It is a sort of urban fantasy historical murder mystery series, if the title didn't clue you in. Really great banter and animation. I'm digging it a lot. Otherwise, this has been a fairly light, looking like a light season for anime, which is fine. It's nice to have those every now and then.
I mean, depending, you've still got, the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen started, so it's kind of... It's pretty big. It's pretty... That one is.
That's fair. I mean, it's... there's plenty of, second season stuff, but,
for the new stuff, yeah.
Yeah, if it's not something where you're already watching it already, it's a bit lighter.
Fair. Very fair.
Sailor Moon Cosmos came out in Japan. I can't wait until they port it over here. It's my favorite season.
Is it a full season, or is it going to be another compilation movie?
It's a two-part movie that they released in theaters in Japan, like they did with season 4, which they called Sailor Moon Eternal. So... I'm very excited.
Yeah, my stuff has been a lot continuation. Undead Murder Farce and Synduality Noir are kind of the big ones for me. Other than that, it's continuation stuff like sort of mini season of Tonikawa and then the second season of Spy Classroom.
Nice. I think the only thing new that I'm watching, and it's not actually that new, it's a couple years old, is I'm watching Amame, Warrior on the Borderline, because I took our son, 7-year-old, to a model store, to choose his first gunpla to build. And he chose something from that show, the Ghost Mark II, which I'd never heard of before. And I'm like, okay, I need to watch this before I can say it's okay for him to watch this. So I'm going through.
It's a very cool suit.
It's a really cool model. We finished it up yesterday. He built it entirely himself. He put it together entirely himself. I helped with the clipping off the sprue and the cleaning up of the pieces, but he put it together himself. And he's very happy with it. It's cool looking, and this show is definitely not for him. This is definitely higher.
You're also watching Witch of Mercury, because your Gundam passion has been reignited.
Oh, yes, that's right. We finished up, because it finished in the spring season, Gundam Witch from Mercury. Which... no pun intended. It's good. I enjoyed it. It's one of those, like most of the alternate universe Gundam series, is very different, but also very much the same.
Agreed. Honestly, those two series, I like Witch from Mercury a lot more. Amame has some fun mecha action to it. It's one of those things where if you know just a bit too much about some of the internal political messaging of some of Japanese political parties, it starts going from, this is okay, into yikes.
Yeah, it's when I read the synopsis for it, I was like, okay, I've never seen this show, but I've seen this show about 6 times. As it goes on, it gets a little nationalistic.
Yeah. It's not quite Red Dawn with mechs, but it's not that far away from being Red Dawn with
yeah. And like, they don't actually entirely bother at all to explain how they got into the situation beyond economic hardships. And it's like, you gotta give us a little more than 2 words to explain how you've reached this
Apocalypse
dystopia.
Yeah, like normally when I've encountered anime where it has the dystopia involving a Japanese partition, usually it's post World War II Japanese partition. It's Japan as East and West Germany, and this one doesn't have that necessarily like thought out justification of that, and. Like I did a review of like the first and second seasons on the blog, on my blog, for like written, and the general attack I got was the mecha action is good. It is really well done action. It is drawn 2D mechs as opposed to CG. It's executed very well. It's just the story around it is iffy, and like in particular chunks of it, it's not necessarily that well thought out.
Yeah, I gotta say, it seems like it was done by a guy who designed mecha and not like an actual writer.
Because you can have series where those two intersect. Like that's literally like half of Masamune Shirau's stuff. Yeah. Like the other half is guy who designs mecha and also draws smut. But
just so we're aware where the cross sections are.
Yeah, like it's or
hey,
like,
sometimes it's important that you need to drive your robot in your panties and bra, and sometimes it's just panties and like half a tank top.
Yeah, I mean like, but on the other hand, like sometimes you have writers who are good at drawing mecha and not much good at writing anything else, and that's where you run into problems.
Oh. God, that reminds me of Knights of Sidonia.
I mean, there are people who like not everyone can be Masamune Shirau. I guess is the key thing there. And like I've read Knights of Sidonia, the manga, and it's a well drawn manga.
I've read it, and it's well drawn.
It gets
it's well drawn. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the character dynamics. There are narrative bits of the world building that are, and also there is the Tsutomu Nihei's desire to have a character in there who's just a bear.
We could have a really interesting roundtable discussion sometime just about mecha shows and their bizarre relationship with sexuality. Like, there are so many weird things in mecha shows that we could talk about.
That's not just mecha shows, that's all anime. And the weird need to include an animal mascot all the time, who's more than just a mascot.
Like, there's a whole generation of people now who started watching, like, Gundam Wing on Toonami because they were like, oh, cool, giant robots. And now they've reached the age where they're like, oh god, child soldiers, war crimes!
I mean, yeah.
And that's my trajectory. And, yeah, I'm actually really interested in watching Witch and Mercury, actually, because I'm glad that they're kind of evolving the franchise a little bit. You know, they have a female protagonist, and they're trying some new things, and I appreciate that.
They're finally allowed to have a female protagonist.
The last Gundam show that I actually watched was Iron-Blooded Orphans.
Oh my god, you did not... You finished the first season.
I couldn't finish it. The sorrow lingers in my heart to this day.
Like, the weird case in terms, like, occasionally when you have female, like, protagonists and pilots and that sort of thing is, like, Double Zeta Gundam, not to get too far on a Gundam tangent, in a weird way, like, it almost gets there, because with our group of scrappy teenage protagonists, you have, like, Zeta Gundam's the first one that has a sort of Gundam team.
Yeah.
And that one has, and that one, in this case, a lot of them are mechs getting basically inherited by members of our scrappy teenage protagonists. And, like, one of them is just borrowing Char's mech, like actual Char as novel.
No, it was Quattro Pacina! Totally different person! person!
But he is a shard.
Yeah. Quattro's mech from Zeta Gundam, and then the other one is flying the main character's mech, also from the previous season.
The two, because it was the Gundam Mark II, and then also the Zeta, and then Judo eventually upgrades to the double Zeta, and the Zeta gets passed down, and then it gets its head knocked off and replaced with the Zaku.
He's restraining himself from giving you the entire breakdown right now.
I mean, Double Zeta was... I'm sorry. Just Double Zeta was very interesting for a Gundam show because it was episodic for about the first half because it was Neo Zeon sending a new strange mech and Judo having to fight it off. It was very Monster of the Week for the first half. And it actually...
That is interesting for a Gundam show.
Yeah. And, like Tamino wanted a actual female protagonist as far back as... Like, he really fought for it in Turn A Gundam, but was not allowed to have a female protagonist, which is why Loran keeps getting confused for a woman and dressing in dresses. It's like, okay, you won't let me? Well, he will be thought of as a woman and will wear dresses for reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, the other stuff I have been, that's the main thing I've been watching. I've been slowly trying to get caught up of, speaking of female protagonists and Tomino, bits and pieces of Aura Battler Dunbean. We are almost at the bit where they go for the extended period in our world. After we previously established that no, you don't want Aura Battlers in our world. Bad things will happen. And I have I've started a little bit of background prep work for next year and Diamond is Unbreakable because I've started watching Twin Peaks.
Goodness.
To be clear, is this the original Twin Peaks or is this the new Twin Peaks?
This is the original Twin Peaks because Twin Peaks: The Return, you kind of have to have watched the original and Firewalk with Me and the missing pieces for that one. Fortunately, all of the series, the first two seasons are available for streaming and the movies are on the Criterion channel, so I'm set there.
Nice. Well, as long as you do it quickly with the way they're gutting Criterion.
Oh, like I think like for at least in the case of the Twin Peaks movies, at least for those also got physical releases. So and libraries tend to be very good about stocking most Criterion Collection releases, except for very specific ones where there's pretty clear objectionable reasons why you wouldn't want to stock those, like Solo. But in any case, with the Twin Peaks from next season, that's a good way to seg into the second half of Stardust Crusaders.
Indeed.
Way to start off would be we get a new party member at the beginning of the series.
Yes, we do.
What did you think of Iggy?
Initially, did not like Iggy. And I think that was intentional given the way that he's drawn very unattractive, ugly, hits that uncanny valley just solidly in the center. And as the series goes on, or season goes on, he is drawn more cute, more friendly.
His muzzle gets smaller. Instead of a giant maw full of teeth, you get this cute little doggy muzzle. The eyes become softer. So as he becomes more sympathetic as a character, the art style reflects that. And it was done really well because I wasn't positive that it was happening until they threw up like a flashback of all his moments, and then you could clearly see it. And I was like, aha. So that was very well done on the part of the animators.
I also like the idea of his character of this is someone who's working for the good guys, but doesn't necessarily want to be there. He doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to fight and risk his life.
He has no skin in the game.
Exactly.
Until he does.
Oh, man. Until he does.
Let's talk about Pet Shop. So first, right off the bat, I want to say, do you know when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out? Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Designs super reminiscent of some of the designs in this second half of Stardust Crusaders. Like, I kept looking at things, like Pet Shop, for instance, and saying, that looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card!
Alright, so the Yu-Gi-Oh!
Was
series,
I want to say
the manga started in 1996.
Yes,
okay.
Which is right about when the first anime was. No, that was 93, so enough time to percolate through.
Yeah. Like Stardust Crusaders, checking Wikipedia real fast, that ran from 89 to 92. So and considering that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was also running in Shonen Jump, that I could definitely see this being a case of somebody reading Stardust Crusaders or watching the OVAs.
Yes.
And then picking that up and going, like, maybe not necessarily, I think that doing something Egypt related is, will get me published in Shonen Jump, but more, this aesthetic works for me. This aesthetic clicks for me in a way that I hadn't been exposed to before. I'm going to go to the bookstore, grab everything I can in Japanese on Egypt.
Yes. See, as an artist, I was wondering if Yu-Gi-Oh's creator was inspired by Stardust Crusaders specifically, or if there was some reference that both artists looked at relating to Egypt that brought up such interesting and specific design themes. I went through a big ancient Egypt phase as a young woman, like 12 to 14, and
adolescent.
Yeah, and I actually did quite a bit of like actual research because this was the young days of the internet, my friends. I went to the library and read books and stuff. So, I recognize the names of the gods and everything, but in terms of art style, I don't know the reference that these artists were working off of to come up with these crazy designs, but I appreciate them.
Yeah. Like, in particular with Yu-Gi-Oh!, there was, it was, like, clear that they wanted to do a horror manga in addition to other stuff, and then decided to do the game aspect for bringing about conflict. And
it just becomes goofy.
I can just definitely see like that, particularly considering what we're going to get into a bit later series with we start talking about the Egyptian god opponents. That I can see those two kind of clicking there. So I can also get into it and talk about the Egyptian god enemies of this series.
Start off with last season we had the tarot. This season we had the 9 Egyptian gods. And Vanilla Ice.
I know, right? You get to the end there and you're like, okay.
And this other guy.
So I read ahead, kind of, and my understanding is that actually Dio had an artifact that allowed him to give people stand powers. Is that correct? That comes up later in the series? Pretty much. Okay.
Yeah, this comes up later in the series.
Come on, how many times do you need to die before you'll stay dead, man?
And the answer is just you have the artifact so that you can have a legacy of Dio to stick around for later, for the next future generations.
I was shocked when I read that because it kind of recontextualizes things. Like if you think back to the first half of the season, the stand user who was a baby. Did Dio stab this baby with an artifact that grants stand powers, and why? Like, I have so many questions.
As we see, when Dio just walks down the street, he will absolutely indiscriminately do damage to just do damage to people.
Sure.
You're not technically in my way, but you're close enough that I'll just,
You're close enough for me to stab.
explode part of you, maybe.
It's like that scene in the new X-Men movies where Quicksilver is going through the area of slowed down time because he's so fast and he's just fucking with everybody. That's Dio. But no, they do a good job making Dio seem a little bit... he's a chaotic evil gremlin, you know? He will absolutely do things for the lulz. It doesn't quite mesh with how they show him through the majority of the season, which is this very aloof, shadowed mastermind type figure. I will say, like, you have this foreknowledge of Dio if you watch the first season and what he was like.
Which, given that this is the second or third season, hopefully you watched the first.
Hopefully. And then you have this portrayal of him throughout almost all of Stardust Crusaders as this aloof, shadowed mastermind figure in the background. And then when you get to the final fight, you're actually, like, the protagonists are actually interacting with him directly. He's just a goofy, crazy dude, man. I
don't think being locked in a coffin
Childishly
underwater for nearly 100 years did much for his sanity.
I don't think so. So in my head, I was kind of thinking, God, where did he find all these people to follow him? And then, you know, the question of that artifact coming up kind of answered that for me. It was like, oh, he created minions.
That's his dad.
Yes.
So, like, of these minions, like, the ones I particularly like, Oingo and Boingo are great.
I hate them so much. And it is almost entirely due to the art style.
Like, the first Oingo and Boingo story, which is basically like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon.
The first one was so funny. I was like, I hate the art, but this is so funny.
I loved it. I was cracking.
And then they brought back, and I'm like, for a two-parter, and I'm like, no.
I have to disagree with my esteemed spouse. I loved it. I thought pairing Mondana with Hall Horse was genius. No. It was so funny. The idea of a comic that tells you the future, great. No notes.
I mean, honestly, when I was seeing that, what I was flashing to was the fucking $4 giving Game Gear from Surf Ninjas. That's what I was.
that.
Because it's just so absurd, but it's also completely accurate.
Hell yeah. Thank you for bringing Surf Ninjas into this. I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. Surf Ninjas, an unappreciated masterpiece or complete trash? Yes.
Oh, and, yeah. So the art style of that comic was 100% wackadoodle. I appreciated it as an artist. I didn't, like it personally, but I appreciated it. I think the idea of the Egyptian god Thoth telling the future in the form of a comic book was actually pretty good. Like, I could see that. Some of the god cards were reaching. Bastet.
Stands. Not god cards. That's Yu-Gi-Oh! Again.
Dio has 9 Egyptian god cards, which means Kaiba's in deep shit. Sorry, I couldn't help it. They do show cards, though. Like, they did the tarot, so they did show cards for the gods, so that's where I'm getting that from. It wasn't completely Yu-Gi-Oh! Bastet related to attraction, sure, I guess.
But it does give, the episode does give the great fourth wall breaking moment of, wait a minute, normally it's Polnareff who has problems with bathrooms.
That was amazing. Actually, that whole episode with Best was amazing, and I loved it the most. Joseph, hilarious. Like, that whole thing where he's being chased around by the very foxy old woman, loved that. And then he and Abdul caught in a compromising position, loved that. Loved it so much. I really liked Mariah, actually, because she was just like, she was also kind of just clearly doing it for kicks, like...
Master Dio wants this, but also it's just
it's funny, yeah.
I appreciated the little Tex Avery moment before she revealed that she'd had a bunch of screws and bolts and so forth stuffed in her bra. Like
yes.
like the moment with Joseph when his eye kind of bulges a bit, it's like Tex Avery would approve.
Yes. that was pretty great. It kind of took me to Austin Powers for a moment, the fembots with the gun boobs. Oh, man. So, I loved that one. I loved Mondada's shtick. I hated Alessi and his whole thing. That episode was...
Which one was he?
Uncomfortable. That was the one when Polnareff got turned into a child version
Oh,
of himself.
God, yes.
Yeah, that one was not good. I do like... Apparently, in the first Capcom video game, there are side content, which is alternate scenarios. And the side content for Alessi is, what if Alessi ran into Joseph?
Oh, no!
Yes!
Which basically would have been, he runs into Joseph and reverts him to battle tendency Joseph. And Alessi realizes that he has made poor life choices.
Oh, no! But, oh, yes. That would have been amazing. Yeah.
Oh, God, just...
There was just a lot of uncomfortable things in that episode. And I'm not talking about, like, little boy nudity. I don't have a problem with that as the mother of a little boy. I'm just talking about this villain specifically wanting to kill little children and prey on those weaker than him. And then Polnareff's adult male reactions to a woman while he's trapped in the body of a little boy. Uncomfortable. And then, like, at the end of the episode, they give him this very, like, serious moment of, like, romantic longing, but no, I'm going to be the good person and move on. And I was like, ick, okay.
Also, somehow he got his earring back by the next episode, even though the woman kept it.
We've just determined that he has a stock of those.
Yes, he keeps losing one earring at a time, and is showing up a scene or two later with both.
Dude's got backups. And backups for the backups.
And where does he keep them?
He
doesn't even have a whole shirt.
He keeps them in nature's pocket, in his pillowy man bosoms. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
I know.
Oh, okay.
And then, like, so last season, or the first half, we ran into conversation with, okay, Jotaro isn't doing that much in this season. When does he kind of come into his own? And the answer is this season with the Darby brothers.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, you fool, you foolish fool. You have chosen to challenge a Japanese delinquent. To a game.
I love how Joseph becomes the narrator of these events. While Jotaro's just sitting there stone-facing it, and Joseph's like, what is going on? And then it's explaining everything.
Oh, no!
So that's only for the video game one.
Darby
for
the
the
Younger.
Darby the Younger. For Darby the Old...
It was Abdul in the first one.
Yeah, for that one's Abdul. Abdul is a great narrator for all of this. And this, like, and just Jotaro's like, I'm not looking
This is why you're friends with Joseph.
Yeah, Jotaro's like, I'm not even going to look at the cards. I'm just going to bet. And,
this is force of will.
And Daniel's
people.
like, oh no, like, did I screw up with the deck stacking? And it's just like him just consumed by his own anxiety.
Fellow D&D players, this is what a natural 20 intimidation check looks like.
Yes.
deception.
Or
It's
deception.
bluff.
Yeah, that works too. It was great. It was a high charisma roll for sure. But yeah, I was just like the force of will. He throws his mother's soul on the table. We're all rightfully like, what are you doing, man?
Speaking of,
It works.
we got some of Jotaro's grandmother, Joseph's wife, Susie Q.
Susie Q.
And why is everyone underestimating her? It's like, she was a student of Joseph's mom too, Lisa. She was there? Why is everyone pretending like she can't deal with this shit? She's dealt with it before.
This is a recurring theme, not just in this show, but in anime in general, of like protecting someone you love by keeping things from them.
Oh yeah, that's just anime.
And
That's not
yes,
all media.
it has been proven to be bullshit in real life, but it still happens partially because of bad examples like this.
I know, I'm just saying, it's like, I want to see badass grandma. Maybe she'll come up later seasons.
It would have been nice to see her kick someone's butt, but hey, it's fine.
Yeah.
Although the reveal at the end that
actually,
she, you know, she may not know everything, but she's not an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of wouldn't have minded seeing, for that matter, like, Lisa, stand-wielding Lisa.
That would have been cool.
That would have been great, although she would have been like 100? Yeah, 100.
I don't know. She
Yeah.
was crazy young the last time we saw her.
I mean, that was the thing, is that hormone users age super slowly. Like, Joseph is gray-haired, but he doesn't look much older than, like, 35.
Joseph is the buffest grandpa. Yeah. Yeah. So then we get to, I think the episode with Pet Shop was the episode where Iggy and Pet Shop face off was like one of the strongest episodes of the season. It was kind of self-contained in a really nice way. It had really good like twists and turns, and it did like a complete 180 on a complete 180 on Iggy and his character development, which was great. Also, Pet Shop was just awesome. Like, I was like, of course there's another animal stand user to face off with Iggy, and it's an evil bird. That was great. Making Horus an actual falcon? Sure.
It's like, making him an evil falcon. That, I mean, tops there. Just so on the nose, but I respect it. Giving him the power of controlling ice.
Random.
Why? Okay.
Random, but okay. It's the little helmet that did it for me. The little helmet was just chef's kiss.
For the bird.
Mwah. But no, that whole episode, I was like invested, you know? I was in it. And I was really invested in all the twists and turns and the ways that Iggy was trying to get out of the situations and outsmart Pet Shop, and I thought it was just incredible. Like, that episode was quality for me.
Let's see what else. What other ones we haven't talked about? We haven't talked about Nadul, whose powers basically are water telekinesis and being Daredevil.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, he was first episode, so kind of have to use the way back.
I do have a slight nitpick on his stand's powers, which is they essentially win by using Avdol to evaporate most of his stand, but they're in the Sahara Desert. Wouldn't the natural environment have kind of done most of that work? So are we saying that only magical fire can affect the magical water? Is that the rule?
I think the fact that he didn't wait until they were closer to the city and, you know, the Nile to fight them was a bit of a mistake on his part. It's like, okay, I'm going to attack you at literally the place I am the weakest in the entire goddamn world.
That's a good point, actually.
Yep.
I mean, Master Dio said I had to deal with him, so I guess I have to deal with him before anyone else whose powers might work better in the desert.
I also think the season suffered just a little bit from every new stand user they fought, someone was sure to say, "This is the most powerful stand user we've faced yet," or "This is the most dangerous stand we've faced yet." Now, I feel like Vanilla Ice actually kind of earned that a little bit. But some of the others I'm not so sure about.
Words that have never been said before in the history of anything. Vanilla Ice earned that.
Yeah. You can have that one, boy.
And his stand, Cream, giving us vanilla ice cream.
So just to note that in the version we watched, the dub, they translated it as cool ice. And I was like, he has a big letter V, letter I on his costume. It's clearly Vanilla Ice, right? So I looked it up and I was like, yeah, sure enough.
I mean, same thing with Oingo Boingo, where it's like Boingo has a comic book labeled Oingo Boingo.
It's like,
I mean, I get that Zenyatta and Mandata is also a music reference, so at least they stuck with a music reference for the... But, I mean, come on.
It's like, okay, so you're worried about a lawsuit from just the audio. Yes. But you didn't bother to change the Oingo Boingo Brothers song at the end of the episode.
No, they did not. So I do have a quibble here that I will bring up with the dub that we watched. We watched on Hulu. And the dub on Hulu, we watch it with the subtitles on, so I can get like any differences between the subtitle translation and the dub that the actors are speaking. They don't bother to translate
Text on
any
screen.
of the text on screen, ever. It's not subbed, it's not dubbed. And normally that's not a problem because you know the name of the show. You can figure out like little title cards and stuff from context clues. But there was an episode when Polnareff was fighting Vanilla Ice. There's this block of text that goes up on the screen that is like basically enumerating the 3 options that he's thinking he has in the screen. And he's like, I think I'm going to have to go with option like 3 or whatever. And you're like, wait, what were the other 2? Just translate the text for us, God. So I feel like, we're missing little like funny text that goes up at the ends of episodes and stuff, which is not a huge deal. But when it's central to the plot like that, you'd think that they would translate it, but no.
Or Abdal seeing the clue carved on the column.
Yeah, what did that say? I was like, what is that?
Yeah. Speaking of which, the one other of the Egyptian god stands we haven't talked about yet, and that would be Anubis, the
sword.
Not Stormbringer. The possessed sword.
I dig it.
It's like there are so many. You were not just an evil sword. Also, how did you get your powers? Were you stabbed?
The sword was stabbed, obviously. No, I don't know. But, I mean, if there are animal stand users, why not inanimate objects? It makes perfect sense to me in universe, because the show is wackadoodle, and I love that about it.
Why would you possess a random guy and make him attack when you could just make him give you to one of JoJo's party?
Like, here, have a sword.
It's going to be a lot harder for them to fight that way. It's like, oh no.
But so much of this show's drama and comedy works on the principle of anticipation. So once you figure out how the sword works, you're just anticipating that someone is going to get possessed, right? And of course it's Polnareff, because it's always Polnareff, except that one time. So yeah, I didn't mind it.
Oh, I didn't say I had a problem with it.
That final bit when it ends up in the Nile, I was cracking up so hard.
Come on, Mr. Crab, drag me to shore.
Come on, Mr. Crab. And the crab's like, bye. Yeah. This second half of the season really doubles down on everything. It doubles down on the comedy. It doubles down on the weird factor. It doubles down on the drama, and it doubles down on the cool fight scenes.
But I think, like, it's fairly light throughout, and then you get to Pet Shop's episode, where
suddenly things are serious.
It is damn serious. And then it's the Darbies. And then it's Darby the Younger, and it's kind of jokey again.
And then they get to
Vanilla
Ice. Serious.
And then it gets super, super serious.
Yeah. I was literally, like, during the face-off with Vanilla Ice, I was literally talking to the show. I was like, you can't do this to me. You can't do a goofy baseball episode and then pull this shit. Like...
a goofy baseball episode where, like, you have the end of the episode is, like, the bad guy who part of his stand is like, I can ask any question, and yes or no question, and the stand will give me an answer. and the end of it being, are you going to punch me with your left hand?
Yes.
No. Are you punching the right hand? No. Are you punch me with both? Yes. Are you going to do the aura thing? And then Joseph's like, yes, get it over with.
That was hilarious. Loved that. Oh man. Yeah, we have.
But yeah, then we get Vanilla Ice, and like, this is basically like the most dangerous, like, real, like, opponent of this, not just of the Stardust Crusaders, but like he's like the was it Wamu equivalent for battle tendency?
Yeah.
And then
So when,
the dude with the hammer from Phantom Blood, in terms of like this is the guy where, like, okay, we're gonna start picking people off and setting up how dangerous this really, like, everything is. This is serious business now.
So when I heard the name Vanilla Ice, I was disposed to laugh because it's Vanilla Ice. That goes back to the ninja rap. I can't help it. That was part of my upbringing. But I really appreciate that they took a moment to show us, like, how serious this guy was right away. Because he goes up to Dio, and Dio's like, would you give me your blood? And he's like, hell yeah. And he just decapitates himself. Just no hesitation, decapitates himself in front of Dio. And it's like, okay, this guy is serious business. And of course, Dio brings him back. He's a vampire.
Although apparently he doesn't know that.
He doesn't quite get that yet.
Did you not think the fact that you came back after cutting off your own head was a little suspicious, buddy?
He doesn't care. He is focused. He is focused on a goal. Yeah. So, my tendency to laugh just because his name is Vanilla Ice was mitigated by that scene, and I was like, okay, this guy means business. But still, there was a bit of mental whiplash for me going from hilarious comedy to now people are gonna start dying.
Yep.
And, I was actually surprised with how strongly I reacted to it, because I kind of knew in my head, I was like, I don't think they're all gonna survive this.
Historically, no group survives in JoJo.
And I didn't realize I had gotten that attached to these characters. Or, okay, Joseph, I knew, would emotionally devastate me if he died.
Win. It's always a win.
But Iggy, I was surprised at how strongly I felt, and
Yep.
Like, honestly,
Abdul and
I think, yeah,
for the second time.
I mean, obviously, spoiler alert, but Abdul's death was so sudden.
Yes.
That it was so sudden. It was just time to shock and like, wait, did they just kill Abdul? I mean, again,
I was like, wait, he's coming back this time too, right?
But all that's left is like arms, and then those get eaten too.
Gross.
And then it's just like, oh god, how many people are going to die now?
Yes.
Like, it wasn't more people going to die. It was, in my head, how many?
Also, huge warning for animal cruelty.
Yeah, this is not a season for animal lovers. There may be an animal protagonist. This is not a season for animal lovers.
Yeah, like we were animal cruelty light in battle tendency. There was still some with the squirrel, but there were like not much at all in the first half. But then this part is definitely like, yeah, this is an Iraqi series. Bad things are going to happen to animals. But yeah, like, I definitely think Abdul's death is spoilers for Serenity. That was kind of the wash biting it moment.
Yeah.
In terms of like out of the blue character character dies who we didn't expect to go out like this. Even if he was going to go out, we expected something more dramatic, and less abrupt.
Yes. And then they kind of reversed that on us shortly thereafter, because it was seeming like Polnareff was going to get the big dramatic death scene. I totally bought it. I was like, okay, he's goner. But no, it was Iggy, and I was so bummed. So I think the drama, the writing throughout the final several episodes is all so good. Like, I was very invested.
All right.
Go ahead.
What would you say about here for Kakyoin? With him.
Loser.
Are you talking about Loser, or are you talking about Kakyoin?
Oh, right. Sorry. That's kind of correct. Kakyoin. Well, I know the fangirls are going to be tragic that he can't be paired up with Jotaro. Have that happy ever after.
I actually, this morning, I read the infamous Clamp Dojinshi, JoJo's Bizarre Married Life. It is just a quick 2-chapter little thing, and I was like, yeah, this seems about right. I mean, I kind of knew of it through its many influences, or things that were influenced by it later. I was like, yes, fair enough. So Kakyoin, I never quite connected to him as a character. He had that one really good episode that nobody else remembered at the end of.
With the Dream Baby.
With the Dream Baby. And I didn't really like that episode, but I liked Kakyoin's development in that episode, if that makes sense.
It's weird. Polnareff was the joke, but Kakyoin was just kind of forgettable.
He sat out part of the season when he was wounded.
Yeah.
He came back wearing sunglasses at all hours. Fine.
He wears his
He wears his sunglasses
at night.
Yep. So, I mean, to be fair, he's probably under medical orders to do so. And he does get that very dramatic, appropriate protagonist death, I think you would say, where he is overpowered, but he manages to pass on vital information before he goes. And, you know, I was fine with it, I guess. That death didn't hit me as hard as the other ones.
It was, I mean, the problem is by that point in the series, we're just expecting the bodies to start piling up. So it didn't really have any sort of shock or, you know, unexpected. It was, Dio's gonna, I mean, by this point, Dio had killed just several bystanders just walking by them. So someone getting in front of him, yeah, they're gonna die. Especially challenging him the way Kakyoin did.
Yeah, and it did not help. Like, when I think about it, like, we talked about this last season. Polnareff had a lot of successful takedowns of stand wielders last season, and a couple this season as well. Kakyoin never, didn't really have many episodes focused on him where he's taking down an opponent. And to a degree, I'm not going to say that it leaves his ending as coming across like a damp squib, but it does come across. But it does make it come across like, oh, so he's the character who's here to die dramatically.
Well, I mean, throughout all of Kakyoin, he wasn't really a fighter. He was a thinker. So his death being
his
in that
card is the Hierophant. That's not combat oriented. If you think of any of the tarot as combat oriented, but I mean, in terms of the usual meaning assigned to that card is about wisdom and strategy more than it is about punchy punch.
So in that respect, I thought, Kakyoin's death was, in character. But it wasn't really tragic, I'd say. Am I happy he's dead? Absolutely not. But I don't really mourn him the way I weirdly do Iggy.
Man, Iggy just got dragged into this.
Iggy I did not like for so much of the
and
season,
then
but
he made a choice to go for it, and he fought till the end, man. You could say the same about Kakyoin. So what is the dramatic construction that makes us care for Iggy's death more, even though Kakyoin has been with us longer? Is it because Iggy is a cute puppy?
No.
I don't think so.
He was cuter by the end, but he was still not too human to be a cute puppy.
Mm-hmm.
In my eyes.
This is an interesting thing to think about, and I wish I knew more. Like, I know a fair bit about narrative construction, but I wish I knew a little more so that I could kind of pin down exactly how the narrative fails Kakyoin in making his death a big dramatic moment.
I don't know. I think Kakyoin, like, Iggy got that, moment on the hero's journey of answering the call, where he could have run away from Pet Shop. Pet Shop did not realize he was an intelligent animal with a stand. He, after picking on him a little, he thought he was, just an animal. And then there's that kid who goes after his dogs that Pet Shop has killed. And that's the moment where Iggy decides, I can't let this happen. Where he answers the call to be a hero. And from that point on, he's a very heroic character.
Maybe it's almost that it's, like, so recent and fresh in our minds, because Kakyoin was, turned, essentially, by the good guys way, way early in the narrative.
Well, yeah, like, Kakyoin is on this to get revenge on Dio. And
I think it actually would have been better if he had explicitly developed an attachment to Jotaro, or any of the members of the party, really, and kind of, like, been doing it almost for them. Like, I believe he should have a self-intrinsic motivation as well, not just doing it for someone else, but by the time you get to the end, he's been absent for a while. It's been so long since he was introduced and essentially rescued by the heroes. And it's like, dude, you could leave,
Well, Polnareff got that bit. He got his revenge. He, finished his mission. He got his revenge for his sister who was murdered. And then like, he chose to keep going.
And he's like, we've been through so much stuff together. I am ride or die with you guys. I think...
And he was just ride.
Kakyoin is less emotive.
He was just die.
He's more emotive than Jotaro, but he's less emotive than Polnareff, because most people are.
Well, the thing is, he may be more emotive than Jotaro, but Jotaro got way more opportunities.
Yes. So Jotaro, I think, because of his archetype, we're primed to look at him and think, okay, the slightest change of facial expression means something like a big emotion is happening to him. Whereas with Kakyoin, he has kind of a normal affect. I was really struck by, as he is dying, he has that memory of always being on the outside, of being different from everybody else, of literally having an imaginary friend that happened to be like a manifestation of his soul. And so he's like, how can I ever make friends if nobody can ever see this thing? And now I have a group of friends who also have their own imaginary friends, and we can all see them, we all know they're real, and it's great, and I have friends for the first time in my life, and it's like, that's good. Why is this only being mentioned now?
I mean, that was the problem, is that he was treated like an enemy stand user, in that they only get their characterization on their deathbed, their dying moments. That's when they get it. Because it's like, oh, this person was a character, I didn't bother to develop it before, but trust me, it was always in my head, but here it is, here's their backstory. And that's how it was dealt with Kakyoin. He died like the enemy stand users do. We get their backstory and...
Because, I mean, I was with him in that moment. I was like, okay, I get where you're coming from. And I get why you're giving your all to help your friends out right now.
But this would have been better, like...
But, yeah, I didn't have...
30 episodes earlier.
I didn't have these feelings going up into it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'll get to Dio. And leading into this, I want to get into the thing we mentioned off air on our sort of group chat. We didn't talk about this in the first couple arcs, but normally in the last episode of a season, or last chunk of a season, they will tweak the opening credits slightly, where they will add sound effects and that sort of thing. for the action that's happening on screen.
Which is very cool.
And it's like this flashy, nice little touch here. I appreciate with Stardust Crusaders with the second half, they do it earlier when we learn the secret of Dio's stand, and to a certain degree also additional power of Jotaro's stand. And when they do it in a way which recontextualizes literally everything you've seen before in this, in the opening credits. Because like, oh, these little sound effect things and that sort of thing seem a little slightly ominous before, but like, no, it's related to the world.
Yeah,
and
it was very cool.
And they even stretch the opening sequence out a little bit further because we now have like before you had like Dio over Jotaro's shoulder, implying that he's this menacing force in the background, and then we learn, oh, it's the world introduced, and its power is time stop, and now it's like, no, Dio was in front of Jotaro, activated the world, and then walked past him contemptuously.
An amazing sound design moment because they stopped the music for this.
And then he turns and smiles, and it starts to big.
There's a big smirk. Beautiful.
Yep, because I think they specifically do this also after we've learned Jotaro's stand also has time stop. The implication being Jotaro kicking on his stand, turning around for a little ora and muda muda.
Is it supposed to be Munda or Mundi to be world, or
Muda.
It is Muda?
Yeah.
So it's him saying muda because we're useless.
Okay.
Like your attacks are useless.
Got it. So that's a fun little like bilingual bonus there.
Yeah.
That it's close to Mundi, which is world.
Yep. And so the big final fight, which that was great.
It was great.
Yeah.
Joseph went down, and I felt it in my soul, and I was like, "You're my favorite." and then okay. So the fight moved on, and in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh, Dio didn't just drink his blood right there. Thank God, right?" And then, as the show intends you to, you forget about that. Until it comes back around.
It was like, you fool, don't you know where we are? And you were like, what, where? I'm like, well, that's Joseph's body. She's like, oh no!
Oh no! I was doing it for Joseph in the moment.
Oh.
And then Dio has a makeup transformation with lipstick. I go straight to Sailor Moon whenever a transformation involves lipstick. I can't help it.
And he loses his headband.
And oh man, there's a split shot of Dio's skull, like his bones, and he has the heart shape on his forehead. And I just died. I was like, that is amazing. I don't know why this vampire has chosen to go with a heart motif, but I'm here for it. So yeah, so much good stuff in that final fight. The twists, the turns, the unexpected moments. Jotaro going through the final episode as if he doesn't have 12 broken bones.
The
steamroller! The steamroller! I get it now. I get the meme.
We've had some very hot weather recently, and we had my room open while I was watching this episode. And I've been with my family since lockdown, and so I have not been watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with my parents because they would not. It's not their cup of tea. But I had the door open when the road roller happened, and I just started cracking up. And my mom walked by what are you laughing at? And, this bit's probably okay for her to watch me round a little bit. This is what I'm watching at. And watching, she poked her head in, watched for a bit, and kind of cracked up laughing to even no context.
Do you really need it?
What are you gonna do? How are you gonna fight him? Steamroller?
Steamroller.
What does that mean?
Oh my god.
I'll figure it out.
I really love this show's ability to anticipate what I'm thinking, because when they first roll up to Dio's mansion, the Crusaders, and they're like, okay, how are we going to do this? I was like, burn that shit down, right? Burn the house down. And then later, Joseph's like, if we're not back in 10 minutes or whatever, burn the house down. And I was like, yes!
Why didn't you start there?
And then, when Dio and Jotaro are throwing down, and Dio's trying to figure out if Jotaro's really dead, I was like, just collapse a building on him, man. Just collapse a building on him. And then later, he's like, I'm just gonna bring a steamroller to the party. I was like, thank you.
If I get close, he can attack me. Hey, there's a police officer.
Dio,
shoot that guy.
Dio freaking out whenever Jotaro twitched his finger was hilarious.
He can't really move. He just used magnets to make you think he could.
But no!
Clever punch. Oh, God. You may use magnets to make you think he couldn't. He's like, yeah, that's Joseph's grandson.
Joseph's dying soul shows up to tell Jotaro to keep his cool and not lose his temper. And 10 seconds later, Jotaro's like, nobody can keep their temper when this shit is happening. and then 10 seconds after that, Gramps was right.
Do you know what your biggest mistake was? I know he's probably going to say pissing him off, but probably just agreeing to live with the Joestars in the first place was Dio's biggest mistake. Like, he could have totally been like a crime kingpin. He could have made it.
These extra motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. Wow. No, it was thrilling from start to finish. I loved everything about it.
Like they put basically about 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes, depending on how you count it, into this fight, and like worth every second.
It did not seem like it dragged. This was
as opposed to many of the previous stands who were getting, stand users who were getting 2 episodes. I'm like, you don't really need 2 episodes.
This isn't like the Dragon Ball Z fight with Frieza, where it goes on for 20 episodes,
and it feels like
18
30.
of which are unnecessary. No, this is all good stuff. The dramatic flow is maintained. The pacing is strong.
The ability to tell time is worthless.
That's true.
I can freeze time for 5 seconds. Then why are you doing this for like a minute and a half?
Yeah. Constantly.
1.
I don't think you know what a second is.
Seriously, do you know how long a second is?
Sometimes Dio is having an internal monologue, but most often he is just speaking his thoughts out loud to everyone. Just all over the place.
If only you
Dio, like many JoJo characters, has no inside voice, has no internal voice. He just...
No. Who needs one? Dio's design was crazy. So, the entire season he's been this, like, menacing figure in the shadows, and then he comes out and he's just like, dude, go walk the runway, go.
Like,
you are wearing orange pants, green heart-shaped knee pads.
That did it for me. I was like, oh my God.
Like, not even pants. He's wearing, I'm actually looking at a picture of his character design for Stardust Crusaders right now. He's wearing a black body stocking. He is wearing a bullfighter vest with a long sleeve bullfighter vest. They're not actually pants. They are basically almost like chaps. Or,
yeah, Dio was too extra for pants.
Like orange chaps with a green belt with a heart-shaped buckle, and I guess kind of 2 straps going down to hold up the top of the chaps. And then the green heart-shaped knee pads. And
he's got that heart on his headband for a while.
Yeah, the green heart headband.
Again, the theming taking me right to Sailor Moon.
Sailor Dio.
I'm not saying that's outside the realm of possibility, because in the 5th season of the 90s anime, the designs of the enemies were exactly this shit. Yes. Exactly. Like, what was happening in fashion in Japan in the 90s? What was happening? I'm not saying I don't like it. I just have questions.
And on top of all of this, I am looking at the TV tropes page for just Dio. And they have the list of all the actors who've played him in various different forms, video games and the OVA and that sort of thing. And I'd like the Japanese voice actor who plays him, Takehito Koyasu, is a absolute wonderful full ham. Like all like absolute all ham, like all in all ham
all the time.
Like, and then I'm like going through here, and then I see that there was a CD drama where he's voiced by Norio Wakamoto, who is basically Japanese Brian Blessed. I'm like, I need to hear this. Even if I don't understand a word of it, I need to hear this. Because, like, honestly, at this point, the only person who could possibly top Patrick Sates, who is the English voice actor, in terms of sheer boisterous ham quality, would indeed be Brian Blessed, or maybe the actor's name just dropped out of my head, Gimli from Lord of the Rings, and John Rhys Davies. Like either John Rhys Davies or Brian Blessed, in terms of just the sheer is the sheer total ham, like boisterous ham, as opposed to like the softer ham of your William Shatner or
this is the full ham.
Or crap, the actor name out of my head. I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Oh, Christopher Walken.
Yeah, the softer ham of a Christopher Walken or a William Shatner.
No, this is evil for evil's sake, full ham.
Yeah, this is the level of ham that requires like if you're going to go any higher than what Patrick Seats brings on the dub, it would have to be, we hired Brian Blessed, we hired John Rhys Davies, because that's the only way you could get this much ham.
I do think, the English voice actor does a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
I was in it.
He does ham well. Like, the first thing I knew Patrick Sates from, like, you know, one of those, this is so great, I have to look up who's doing this, was his work on Tiger and Bunny as Sky High.
Yes, so good. So good.
Keith Goodman.
Thanks again. No, the Dio's great superpower, the reason he is the nemesis, is because he is the only motherfucker who is more extra than the Joestars.
Yeah, that is accurate.
And the voice reflects that.
I'm a little surprised he didn't have a bunch of vampire minions.
That is also true. Like, only having like effectively the one vampire, like, so two kind of vampire sidekicks. One of whom goes out basically like a punk.
Loser, as everyone will describe them.
They were like, we need some levity here.
I don't know. I feel like giving that bit of levity did not do them any favors narratively.
I don't know. They needed someone to show them to the coffin. There you go.
It was just up the stairs and the left. I think they could have found it.
Can we talk about that guy in the pillar for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Mendon.
Kenny G.
That was Kenny G.
Or Billie Jean in the dub.
Yep.
My understanding is that he survived this.
Yes, apparently according to supplementary materials, he survived it, hooked up with Mariah, and they own a bar.
That's amazing.
Which
he uses his illusion powers to make sure the cops can't find.
That's amazing.
I mean, of the supporting characters from this, sure, like, of the villains, like, grab two of the ones who survive, basically go and start the bar with no name. Sure.
Why not? Cairo is interestingly portrayed in the arc because it feels like a great big sprawling modern city, so points, because it is. But the streets are full of innocent bystanders about to be murdered or completely empty. And there's no in between. David says there was a bit that they censored when Dio had coerced that senator to drive the car up onto the sidewalk.
I didn't say censored. I said they didn't animate it in this version.
Oh.
Yeah.
In the 90s version, it's a lot more brutal.
Yeah.
It's like, Dio, we know you evil. Take it down a notch. He refuses. Dio never takes it down a notch.
Hey, he's filled with murderous impulses at traffic. I get that.
I get that.
And then after Dio is beaten, they managed to bring back Joseph.
Oh my god, they do.
God damn Joseph Joestar. He got me. Okay? He got me with that. I was freaking out.
Okay, so for
I
those
could not even.
Okay, so
This guy.
for those of you who didn't bother to actually watch it, Joseph is
Cannot
killed
even.
by Dio and then exsanguinated. So after Dio is killed, Jotaro has them perform a blood transfusion to get Joseph's blood back into Joseph from Dio.
And he uses
And he
Star
rises,
Platinum.
and he uses Star Platinum to basically reach into Joseph's chest and get his heart beating to get the blood pumping.
Again, they anticipated my objection.
And he sits up in the classic vampire sit-up, eyes glowing purple. And he's like, "You fools! You brought me back!" And Jotaro's about to beat him down. And Joseph's like, "Wait, no! I was joking! It's me! Oh, no!"
That goddamn
Like-
bastard! I can't believe that shit. I'm
Like,
yelling right now.
I love him doing the Undertaker sit up and then immediately going, hey, just a joke.
God
My favorite
damn
band is Weird Al
Joseph.
Yankovic.
God damn it, Joseph! That was peak Joseph, and I loved it. And I was like yelling.
Strong feelings there.
Strong feelings there. But he was my favorite the whole way through, and I'm so glad that they brought him back. And of course, he was a goofy jerk right at the. Of course, that's Joseph. I was like, I will throttle you. You are not real, but I will reach into my television and throttle you. God damn it.
All I can say is, I feel like if it had been Joseph Joestar who first met Dio instead of Jonathan, things would have gone very differently. As Dio would absolutely have run away from that household, because Joseph would have been messing with him nonstop and doing a way better job than Jonathan ever did.
Jonathan was too pure.
Yeah, Jonathan was a pure, upright Boy
Pure
Scout.
of heart and dumb
And-
of ass.
Yes. God damn it, Joseph. Jesus. No, that was the perfect ending.
And yep, we wrap up with with Joseph and Jotaro going back to Japan and Polnareff returning to Europe.
Bye, Polnareff.
He may have survived, but he went to France.
Oh my gosh. No, they pop up the Crusaders on the screen, and David looks at the screen and he goes, "Dead, dead, dead, alive, but tragically French."
Not that I actually personally have anything against France.
And I was dying. Oh my god.
Like,
Yeah, my grandmother was Belgian. I speak French. I'm all for it, but that
it's a
was
very French
hilarious.
family I married into.
Oh my god. No. So thinking about it afterwards, I do feel very satisfied. Like, the final fight was so satisfying. There were dramatic deaths. I'm sad about them in a satisfying way. Joseph's back, and I'm all about that. And, of course, Polnareff lived. Oh my gosh, this guy. He's both the luckiest and the unluckiest. I don't know what to say about him.
I wonder if he'll get Robo-Toes from the Speedwagon Foundation.
Robo-Toes.
Because, I mean, Joseph's got that robotic hand. prosthetic, as he keeps saying.
Speedwagon,
I wonder if...
it's just the gift that keeps on giving. Like, they showed up at the end in their van that was labeled Speedwagon. And I was
2 words!
God bless their hearts.
Speedwagon was one name!
These guys
Why is this
are
thing labeled?
just the best. Let the Speedwagon Foundation never die.
No, you see, the Speedwagon 2 names are their undercover vans that are whereas when they're operating in the open, they use it as just one word.
Exactly. And that makes perfect sense.
I just made that up just now as an attempt for a no prize.
I will swallow that hook, line, and sinker because that's how this show works. No, but like the thing that I struggle to explain to people who see certain anime and they're like, this is the weirdest, goofiest shit I've ever seen. It's like, yes, but
that's because you haven't seen the weirder, goofier.
The emotions are real. The emotions are legit. The storytelling is legit. And the narrative foundation is solid, right? So even though the show is whack as hell, the emotions are solid. Like, do you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, one of the things that I think that is, like, important when it comes to, like, looking at anime, and if you're trying, and when people try to go, okay, we're going to try adapting something from anime into live action, whether it's like a straight live action adaptation or borrowing a trope or that sort of thing, is anime is, like, sincere. Is, like, truly, fully sincere. No matter how farcical it gets, no matter how absolutely wackadoo it gets, it is like, and campy, it is completely sincere about what it's doing. It is never like, even in weird ways where it like will do a wink and a nod and say this reads like something out of a comic book, this reads out something out of a manga, or that sort of thing. It is still like with a degree of real sincerity to it. It is the difference between to do a couple live action film comparisons. It's a difference between where in Enter the Dragon, where one of the characters is offered their plan to do the bad guy offers to bring him in on his drug operation and his secret island base and that sort of thing, and the guy responds, "Man, this sounds like something out of a comic book." Like, it is still said with full sincerity, in no way undermining what it has done before. Whereas when you'll have some other, like, more recent movies and that sort of thing, well, they'll say a line like that. That is because they don't trust the audience to have that sense of sincerity. And
like, if you, yeah,
I think that's the important thing there. Like, whenever we get around to doing some like of the like Korean or Hong Kong live action anime adaptations in the future in a January episode, I think it's a thing to be worth keeping an eye on. Or as we get to the live action One Piece or that sort of thing,
I'm looking forward to that.
What makes that trailer look good is it feels sincere about what it's doing. Like, even the live action Death Note, I get the sense that it is sincere about how it is approaching the material,
English or the Japanese
as opposed even the English
one. I haven't seen the English one. Loved the Japanese one. I own that. It is fantastic.
German code.
Even like what I've seen of the Netflix live action Death Note is it approached the thing from a degree of sincerity as opposed to something like Dragon Ball Evolution, which could not necessarily maintain that sense of sincerity in a way that would keep audience buying.
Yeah, I think one of my, not one of my favorite films, but one I deeply appreciate, is the 1980 Flash Gordon. It is done with 100% sincerity, no winking at the camera. It is the most ridiculous, over-the-top nonsense, but it is done with such sincerity.
It's fun to watch.
It is fun. It is genuinely entertaining. Is it good? Not by most metrics, but it's entertaining. And it's not making fun of it. It's just, this is ridiculous, And that's wonderful.
I think the market has reached its saturation on comic book style stories told with a gritty, oppressive sense of realism. Who is reading comics for realism? Certainly not me. I like it when things are goofy and crazy. And I think if you look at all the storytelling traditions of humans as a whole, having something that is goofy or zany or wildly imaginative or even batshit crazy is a common storytelling method, and it does not reduce the importance or impact of those stories one bit. It actually heightens them in many cases, because that's how we deal with certain things, is by turning them into stories, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting a little deep and psychological there, but all this is to say that,
well, honestly, you need things that are larger than life.
People who dismiss stories based on the fact that they're not realistic or that they contain fantastical elements is a point of view that I will never understand.
Honestly, I think for all of the wonderful things he brought us for the Arthurian mythos, Geoffrey of Monmouth removing most of the absolutely fantastic and amazing things that the early stories about the Knights of the Round Table possessed is just a terrible crime. Like, the Knights of the Round Table were fucking superheroes.
So yeah, we could go through different cultures and mythologies all over the world and pick out insane stories, and they're all valid. That's all I'm trying to say. 100% valid. The emotions are real. The things you take away from it are real, regardless of the goofiness level. And there's something personally that I love about absorbing a story where the creator has taken their personal passions and loves and just thrown them all in the melting pot. And I think that's why a lot of content creators on the internet are so popular, is because you just do what you love, and then you naturally attract the people who love the same things.
and it's interesting talking about, in particular, at this moment in filmmaking and such, because we are recording this on the weekend of Barbieheimer.
Yes. We are.
And where we have, on the one hand, we have Oppenheimer, which is Christopher Nolan, who was a director, even for all of his like stories, which on the other hand are very wackadoo, like Inception, will also maintain, like, if you think about like the dreamscapes he's going for, he also maintains a very heavy level of groundedness to the material, no matter how fantastical the visuals around them get. For Inception or Tenet or that sort of thing. And with Oppenheimer, it is possibly at its most grounded because it's a biopic about a development of nuclear weapons. And then on the other side of the equation, you have Greta Gerwig and the Barbie movie, which, going from the visuals I have seen, I have not had an opportunity to watch the movie in theaters yet, has very out there, spectacular, deliberately unrealistic visuals in a lot of respects, but also is with a full sense of sincerity to it. So it is interesting having those contrasts this weekend. There's a place for both of them in artistic mediums. Like we have, when we talked about, like when we kind of started for our second series that we did with Boogie Pop, where that is a series where it has some very wackadoo elements, but it is also intensely grounded in a lot of its visuals.
Yes, and it feels very serious and grounded.
Whereas, so like JoJo, which is all over the place.
All over the place.
So it
wants to do everything.
It's wonderful. Yep. So yeah.
It's like Joseph. Too bad he can't drive or fly.
He's not allowed.
Oh,
he's not allowed.
Well, he can do that. He's just not allowed because he always keeps crashing them.
That bit when they're flying to Japan, right at the very end of the show, David looks at me and he goes, "Well, Joseph isn't flying, so hopefully they'll make it."
I gave it 50-50.
And I was like, it's the end. They're going to make it. Don't you do this to me. But then I was on edge because, of course, it would go there.
I don't know. Like, we could easily get, like, vampire, like, shot to get to a person, someone, 2 rows ahead of them, smiling with the fags. It's like, oh, there's Dio's legacy again.
No, they let me have it. They let me have it, and you should too.
Yeah, they did not do the thing which they did with the end of the first end of Battle Tendency, which is they didn't do a lead in to the next season right off the bat. So which, like, if you were to stop watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventures altogether, this is not a bad place to stop.
My understanding
the Dio saga is theoretically completed. There is the legacy of Dio in future seasons, but like, if Araki said, "I'm done at this point," they'd be like, "Oh, this is a satisfying conclusion. I feel okay with it."
My understanding was that he kind of thought that he might stop, and then the publishers were like, "Are you kidding? This is the most popular thing. You have to keep going."
Well, this is as the bane of many mangaka's existence.
Did too good.
That's how we get the Androids arc, and then the Cell games, and then the Boo arc, and then Dragon Ball GT.
You hear a lot of these stories about manga writers being pressured into continuing or pressured into going a direction that their story, they did not want it to go. So, a very different paradigm, I guess, than in America, where the publisher certainly has power, but we think of the author as having final say.
Oh, I usually think it's the editor-in-chief who has the final say.
But if you take a very popular author like
Looking
George
at you.
R.R. Martin, for instance, like...
Well, I think to a certain degree also, like, it varies depending on what magazine you're in.
That's true.
Like, it's important to mention, we are, like, for all of the horrific blood and gore and violence that we've had in this season, this ran in Weekly Shonen Jump. Which, on the one hand, has the burden placed upon it of, this is a weekly series. A weekly thing, so you need to keep having something week to week. And, like, I do not recommend reading the manga Bakuman or watching the anime for a lot of reasons. There are some very gross depictions of women and relationships within women and that sort of thing in there. The only reason I would recommend looking at any of it at all is like maybe the first couple, like 2 or 3 volumes, where they get into the weeds of how the editorial desk for Weekly Shonen Jump works. In terms of the surveys, in terms of pressure on authors to keep putting out stuff because the polls are doing well and that sort of thing. I suspect with like certain other magazines, or the monthly magazines, or bi-weekly magazines, the pressures may be different. To a degree, I can see with an author where they reach a certain degree of success, they can say, "Hey, I'm taking some time off," which is something you've seen with Oda on One Piece, and we've seen with Hero Academia, where they've taken like certain degree of breaks.
Or like Hunter x Hunter, where they occasionally stop having breaks and put out a couple issues.
Yeah, well, in the case of Hunter x Hunter, there's also the advantage of once you get a certain degree of clout, you can just say that, because it's important to mention the guy who did Hunter x Hunter before that had done several other very successful manga. So it's the kind of
more than Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, it's a sort of thing where you can say, "I am taking a break," and the response from the editor is, "We need to keep the author happy. Yes, take as long as you need."
I could rant quite a bit on Hunter x Hunter and how I am not a fan of Hunter x Hunter. I believe that stories should have stories and not just successive tournament arcs.
I'm a big fan of work-life balance, though, so...
Yeah, no. I have no problem with his taking constant breaks. I think that's great. I mean, it's better than the alternative of, like, Kin Akamatsu, who was like, "Okay, I drew the harem. Now can I finally do my fight manga that I want to do?" "Oh, no, we need you to do another harem manga because Love Hina was so damn popular."
And he finally got his battle manga with UQ Holder. And
well, as opposed to the half measure that was Negi Sensei.
Yeah, and then backdoor. This is an actual alternative universe sequel to Negima, and he then had to rush the ending so he could run for political office.
But I mean, it does seem like the author of JoJo's is one of those more kind of workaholic mangakas who is just churning them out, and it's like, I hope you're taking vacations, man.
Well, I think it helps to a certain degree he's not in Weekly Shonen Jump anymore.
Yeah.
like basically once we reach the end of Stone Ocean, he shifts magazines. I forget which one he's in now. But yeah, he's not in Shonen Jump, and so he can do more or less. I'm not saying he can do whatever he wants, but it is allowing for a certain degree of freedom, and letting him take breaks and that sort of thing. Because like Steel Ball Run shifted gears partway through to Ultra Jump, which is seinen and is also monthly. So
I can't imagine putting out a comic every single week. I can't.
Well, remember, their comics are generally it's like 14 pages, black and white. So that's 2 pages a day, on average.
Yep.
Even so.
14 to 17 pages, depending on the thing.
Yeah, sure.
Also, you are not inking yourself necessarily. You have assistants for that.
But even so.
And in some cases, the inkers will also be, or the assistants will also be handling backgrounds and that sort of thing. So you don't necessarily need to draw those either. In fact, actually, like depending on the publisher, the person, their assistants, it'll be like you do the pencils and the layouts and the story, and assistants will do lettering, inking, and backgrounds. And if you're doing a color page, that is something that is handled by the magazine itself. So, like, you can provide some feedback on what the colors are, but the actual colorist is employed by whoever's publishing you.
That reminds me, I wanted to mention in Stardust Crusaders, the way the color scheme changed at certain points and went completely neon. That was cool, I thought. I thought that was an interesting...
Well, they've done it through the whole show so far.
Design choice. But I don't know, I feel like it was more prominent in Stardust Crusaders, or maybe it just felt like it came more out of nowhere.
It was more highlighted, definitely,
But
which I think might...
liked it. I don't know.
I like the way that they, towards the end, they were tying it to Dio.
Yeah.
So the question is, every time it happened, was Dio using his power? Previously?
That is a good question. A quick plug on the talking about the manga from a artist perspective kind of thing. To go back to the first episode and the various things that led to me to starting off the series, I do want to recommend as a not say what call it a companion to the series, but if you're interested in looking at a conversation about manga from a comics artist perspective, there is the Manga Splaining podcast with one of the hosts of that being Chip Zdarsky, who is a very successful comics writer and artist who has done plenty of stuff with Marvel and independent stuff and that sort of thing. Very worth checking out.
Yeah, it's always fun hearing about the nuts and bolts. And also I feel like it helps to counter the very entitled attitude that some fans have, as in like people who are hounding writers. Like, when is my next installment coming out? God. It's like, well, the creative process is what it is. So sometimes the ideas just don't flow. And some people are able to work straight through that, and others just aren't. So I'm always interested in hearing more about how the industry works and how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Well, next, we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do for next month. So for August, we're going to be starting off another theme month where anime with a tabletop role-playing connection. In this case, we'll be starting off with a series adapted from a tabletop role-playing game campaign with the original 1990s Record of Lodoss War OVA series. This is available for streaming on Crunchyroll. There's also a great Blu-ray release. There also, if you a portion of this arc is also available in a novel form. Or the series is partially adapting a novel in addition to a actual play role-playing game campaign. And the digital version of that novel is available basically wherever you buy digital books. So there's that option. So there's that too.
We're tabletop nerds, and we're looking forward to it.
Again,
I am.
We've seen it before, but it's been a while.
I never saw the whole thing.
You did? No, you did.
I don't think I did.
No.
I saw scattered pieces of it throughout the 90s when anime was hard to get.
I want to say we watched it together in the early tens. But, wonder if I can find my old bootleg DVDs. I'll probably should invest in a more modern release that doesn't make me sad.
It's got a really good... The Blu-ray release is really good. I definitely recommend it. So we have that to look forward to for next month. In the meantime, if you enjoyed what you listened to, please rate and review on your podcatching platform of choice. It helps us get discovered in the various algorithms. And if you like it even more than that, please consider backing the Patreon at patreon.com/count0or. Backing us on that helps pay for hosting costs. So, thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you. As always, interact with us. We crave your interaction.